Yep.
Welcome to the Struggle Bubble. I'm Chad Cutting.
And I'm Craig Sergi.
First, let's talk about your gear, what you're outfitted in today. Tell us about it.
Wait. Well, if anybody's not watching, I will repeat what it says. 2026 CCS Division 1 champions. 2026 SCVAL De Anza champions. And I've got my Los Gatos Cats hoodie on. CCS Division champions, Los Gatos High School 25-26. Whoop whoop.
You're all geared up.
Very proud. Very happy and proud. Nah, I'm not going to wear it after today and leave it for next season when we play like a St. Francis. I'll wear it again then.
I was going to ask if you're going to sew those patches onto your Letterman jacket.
That's what I said. If we win another CCS and the league, I think it's time for the football jackets and we start getting these patches on.
Is that something that you do in Europe? Is there a
Nope.
Letterman jacket? No.
Nope. No one cares. Nope. You won? Great. Good job. Move on.
Today's episode, I think we focused a bit on this week's been really interesting. We follow a bunch of other podcasts and publications tracking youth sports, and we talk about here every single day. How do we get more athletes out there on the field longer? The great conversation with Rob Ludeman, with Andrew McRobbie, right? Similar conversations that we're having to just have fun, get more kids participating. On the other side of that, you've got Landon Donovan was on the rounds this week, just talking about soccer in the United States and what's broken with it, and an interesting perspective that we'll get to in a second. And then just the overall theme of private equity and more money going into youth sports. And you and I both know from a professional perspective, private equity getting into anything professionally has probably more cons than pros if you're part of those companies or the ecosystems that they're coming in on. Youth sports, it's super interesting because there is a lot of money in there. And New York Times reported $40 billion industry. There's two sides of that we really want to get into today because one, the investment into youth sports is incredible. More organizations putting in fields, lights, uniforms, creating an opportunity for more kids to play. Awesome. Getting into the youth sports world to charge more, it's getting more expensive. It's pay to play, right? That 40 billion isn't exactly something to be super proud of. And just want to break it down a little bit today from what we're seeing from our perspective.
Well, multiples, right? I think it starts from the top down. And I think, when you're paying $20 a beer at the 49ers stadium, right, it starts from all the way there. Now, that's always been a thing, right? The pro sports has its big checks, but it hasn't. I'd probably say the last 30, 40 years, maybe so. Probably, obviously, I wasn't here, but with football in England and Europe, top-level pros in the 80s were making very good money, 70s making very good money, 60s not at all, right? You're still a working man sport. People were making money, but not on the Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi is both billionaires at this point, right? So I think it starts from the top down, right? You manage down. And I think there's a hell of a lot of marketing resources pushed towards this all at the same time, right? So if you go from the pros to NIL's been 3 years now, maybe? I can't remember when it came out. But that NIL is now trickling down to high school, right? High school is now trickling down. And there's just this teardrop, waterfall effect where I had a conversation with one of our players yesterday. She's probably going to finish high school early. And she's a D1 commit, and she's gonna potentially start college in January. Right? Again, we're talking about the 0.1%. But the club that she's associated with, I presume, will promote that, which will trickle down to the 6, 7, 8-year-olds with the crazy ass parents that want their kid to be that 0.01%, and so will pay $500 a month extra to do private training. We'll pay $3,500 a month to join a certain club with a certain logo and a certain, league that they play in. Then you also have the issues in the leagues, right? Every league now has multiple tiers. I'm just talking soccer here. but you've got ECNL versus GA, you've got MLS Next versus Club, you've got NPL, RL.
Yep.
You and I had a meeting this week with soccer industry experts, and we did the tiering effect, and we showed you someone that isn't in the soccer world what this all is and the craziness around that tiering. Then on top of that, as you said, you had Landon Donovan this week heavily on the podcasts and some others of, and you and I chat about it. In England, Europe, jumpers for goalposts. The wreck, if you air quotation want to call it that, was me and my mates playing football on a piece of dirt or grass or school field or something. That was rec. That was no coaching, no parents, no anything. That was time before, the end, the middle of school, whatever. That was when we played. There was no, you mess up, it was your peer calling you out. It wasn't a parent, it wasn't a coach. None of
But
that
it was free.
bullshit that
It
we
was
deal
free
with.
free play. And but that,
Yeah.
just pause on that for a second. Right? Depending on where you are, in the United States, in Europe, wherever you are, there are varying degrees of facilities available. Right. In where I grew up, there were patches of grass everywhere. You can go out in a front yard, backyard, and play. So there are different areas. Now we can go spend a ton of time on the attention span of the kids and screen time, and not choosing to go outside. That's the one element of this. But there's also, you're just speaking to the jumpers for goalposts. Those areas, especially on the West Coast, are being bought up. There's warehouses being bought up. I think I have an Instagram ad daily for how to franchise an athletic facility. And it, for me, it just keeps going down to motivations. Like, what is the motivation of those orgs? So let's break down what you just walked through and what we talked to Andrew earlier on the episode and this week during our meeting. The hierarchy of soccer in the United States and baseball. Those are the two areas that both of us are really familiar about. In soccer, there are many governing bodies, but it sounds like there's a disconnect between a top level, right? USA Soccer, do they dictate or mandate the methodology of soccer in the United States?
Try to. Try to. And
Okay,
depending on what you
so there
class
are
on
there are voices.
methodology, right? There are voices. There are voices like we should be playing 4v4, 7v7, 9v9, up to it. Yeah, yes. But they don't have ownership of what leagues, say NorCal, where we are. They can just spin out a new league and call it whatever they want to call it.
In your opinion, do you believe that we'll name? I mean, NorCal, ECNL, all the alphabet soup. Do they measure their success on revenue, on kids participating, on kids returning? What is the metric that they care about the most?
Probably both, in all honesty. Financial, not as much. I mean, obviously there is a financial part to this, right? They run the leagues and all those kind of things, but it's not over excessive, in my opinion, right? I think it's $500 or something for a team to play a season, so they're not gouging a club to go and play in their league.
Okay, so
They
but then
have
then help me with that trickle down, because the stats that we're seeing, there's been over the last 5 years a 50% increase in the cost to play sports in the, just speaking to the United States. We're on one side saying we're not keeping enough kids in, right? 70% of kids quit the sport that they're playing by the age 13. They're done. So that is either a goal setting problem, a financial problem where you just can't access it anymore, but something's breaking down in the middle of all that. So if we say governing bodies, they're making enough to facilitate the play, they're not able to communicate how, the methodology, and you have parents deciding that competitive sports, right, the comp track is better for their kid than a rec track. And we still know the numbers. If the end goal is to go play D1, or just, let's just say high school, college, or professional, that those percentages dwindle just because there aren't that many opportunities.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's something fundamental breaking down for me, at least mentally, when I see all of those models, that we are optimizing for the wrong things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I think there's multiple scenarios here. One is a kid just naturally doesn't want to play the sport anymore, right? That's just the core of it. Um, Two is you've played it for so long, the next level, you're just not that level. So drop out the sport. They maybe not drop out the sport, but the rec programs or the ones below it doesn't appeal to that player anymore. And then you'll see an uptick of 30 plus leagues kicking back in, that kind of stuff, right? They still want to be involved in the sport or whatever. Um, but I think the core of this and where you're going with this is the rec leagues are great depending on where you live, i.e., Sunday league football in England is ran by dads or mums, right? Parents, because they grew up playing the sport. That is what we would class as rec. In Europe, it's classed as comp. It's just classed as playing. It's not even comp. It's just you play for this team, right? And it's run by a parent. Same as baseball in this country, right? Um, so the drop off, I think, in my opinion, is due to the marketing side of it again, right? I need to be in comp because I need to keep up with the Joneses. My kid plays in Surf Cup. My kid plays for an ECNL program. My kid plays blah 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 blah. Right? The weight
But,
and the
but let's break that down because if so, there's coaching, but at 6 years old, we've talked about your job as a coach is to create a love of the game. You're not
yeah
creating the next Messi,
yeah
right? There's generational talent that you see at the professional level that kid is likely going to be good no matter what. They have a passion. They're watching games. They're picking things up. They're trying things in the backyard. So if you put in, again, we don't know the answer to this, but I want to pressure test this. If you drop Messi into Omaha, Nebraska when he was born, does he become a professional footballer?
if he falls in love with the game.
So all of this being said, right, pushing people down that track, like more and more my head goes towards finding more fields, green areas. And that could be dirt patches, maybe it's parking lots, maybe it's like find a place that they are safe, there's an environment, but it doesn't necessarily need to be active coaching. In fact, I mean, you've said it yourself, you prefer not to have active coaching. Let the kids take care of it themselves. Here's a soccer ball. Go.
Yeah, there's so again, I'm going to go back to social media pressure. Um, and I do this all the time when I coach. Every now and then we'll do an open scrimmage day. Same when I was a kid. We're going to line all 20 kids up and it's self-picked, right? And you naturally get the cream rise to the top. The best kid gets picked first. It is what it is, right?
The kids are
It
able to
starts
identify talent. I mean, we don't want
100%.
the schoolyard stuff where somebody's feeling left out or always being, last pick. But to your
There's
point,
ways,
the
correct.
kids
There's ways
know,
to do it. Yeah,
and they
yeah,
want the
they know
team's
what they want.
fair, right? They don't
But
want
the
a blowout happening.
but the problem is then the club potentially gets an email saying, "Hey, training was weak today because my kid from team 1 played with a team 3 kid
I'm
and they
with you.
missed an hour and a half."
I
And
I
it
get it.
drives me
But that's the incentive problem. So part of the dialogue that we are trying to create, and there's some other great, podcasters, influencers, and educators out there, and coaches out there that are trying to get the message out. And it's really hard because when push comes to shove, I have those same thoughts, right? There have been phone calls from me to you saying, my kid, I really wish they were getting this and that. And you fall into that. And it's maybe a weird equivalence here, but it's like the steroids battle in baseball. I don't want to do it, but if everybody else is doing it, I'm going to have to do it too. And if we don't find a common footing and a common understanding of what the expectations are, but I mean, maybe we need to have more and more, high school and college coaches on there. There's an interesting story, the other day, and it came out of our conversation with Rob Ludeman. Scouts, coaches, right? Parents believe that all of this matters right now to those people, to those decision makers. There is no video or game that is being watched for your 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, because it does not matter. It is going to depend on their body type and their motivation when they are 15, 16, like when they are a grown person. I am
and
5'7"
even then,
I was a really good athlete. If I had the same numbers and was a foot taller, my life would be different. But guess what? That's not my journey. But I loved playing day in and day out. And I probably had more fun playing in the backyard, playing home run derby than I did during those high pressure moments of travel ball.
Yep. Yeah, 100% did. I mean, we talk about this all the time, right? Um, well, multiple things, but you aren't playing in the NBA if you're under 6'3". And if you are between 6'3" and 6'5", you better be as good as Steph Curry. Guess what? There's only one of him.
Yep.
It is
And
what
we,
it is.
we, we all have dreams, and like that should be a motivating factor. But what I want to get to
Absolutely.
is set the right end goal. And if the end goal is fun, enjoyment, love of the game, and really social building, right? Take the sport completely out of it. Are you a good teammate? Are you an asshole? We've played with those guys that are absolute pricks, right? And they're really talented. They do not make the team better. You do not want to go out and hang out with them, and you tolerate them. And then in the real world, that's the people we aren't hiring.
So here's the issue, right? Just to get to it, you also now have coaches that decide that they want to be an ECNL coach or a pro coach or whatever terminology. And my classification of a pro coach is if I'm getting paid to coach, you're a professional coach, which brings
It's your career.
responsibilities.
It's
Yeah,
your, but
it brings
that's motivation.
responsibilities, right?
That's the same thing we just talked about. The proper motivations, and I get it. So walk through that coaching journey.
Yeah.
You come out of playing likely some type of competitive, whether it's college or semi-pro, pro ball, and then you want to continue coaching. You believe that is a career path. What are the options right now?
Yeah, I mean, anywhere in the world for soccer specifically, you go through qualifications, right? Can you coach? All these kind of things. Now, they've changed over the years dramatically. Also a moneymaker to a certain degree, right? It's expensive now to go and get your A license and those kinds. It's like
Why?
five. Good. A lot of it is they're trying to higher the standard, i.e. the if
So
you do your UEFA.
I have to pay if I'm able to pay. I'm a higher standard.
So yes and no. Most people I've worked with in clubs, the club will pay for that coach to go on the course, right? So it's not yes and no to that answer. The reason it's increased is they've tried to bring in higher standards. You used to do the sessions at your local club with your local team, video camera setup, that kind of stuff. Now they want you to travel to an elite stadium and feel the whole process, right? And part of that is if you're going on this journey and you're going to get to the pro license, the A license, that stuff, in theory, that level then gets you into that world, right? MLS, NWSL, whatever, right? So that's a kind of a side subject to it. The part of it, the core of it, I should say, is as a youth coach, again, the social media pressure. If I win a tournament, it makes me look good. Then because my team's good, I can potentially attract other players to come to my team, which generally then, again, you talk about cream rising to the top. If I win enough things, all these players will come. Is it the best scenario? Question mark. Are those players going to gel together? Question mark. Is the way that I coach different because I have an elite group of players and there's no pathway now for team 2 players or 3 players to move up? It's a whole thing that I hate, which is part of the reason
Stupid.
I'm kind of out.
Craig,
Yeah,
that makes absolutely no sense of anything. I don't understand. So let's run this
break it down.
backwards.
Mhm.
You have a state caliber girls high school soccer team. Yeah. Any one of those girls likely would be a great coach for 6-year-olds today. Right. You could give them the opportunity.
Yeah,
So just starting there, right?
yeah,
your level
yeah,
one is a parent knowing the game. They know the game.
yeah, yes,
Now they
yes,
don't have kids, and there's a child
yeah,
psychology part of it that I totally get.
yeah.
But
But the base
going
of
to
it
an
is a ball,
academy to
two
coach,
goals. Yeah, yeah,
exactly, and then they learn there. But then going back to what you just said, the motivation then is I recruit all these top talent to make me better as a coach. not to make the kids better. And I understand the career element, and I'm likely not getting some of the nuance here of developing, and I don't want to take a chance on not going to that level, to that caliber, because I don't have a good enough team. But then you start breaking down, there's recruiting that happens. Where I want that. I just played against that girl that beat me, right? That striker kicked my butt. And after the game, like, hey, yeah, we have open tryouts in 2 weeks, which I think is illegal in NorCal. You're not allowed to do that, but how do you police it?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's best for the kid is being in their community and playing with their friends.
Well, and there's another side to this as well. Yes, I agree. The other side of it is play at the level you're supposed to play at. So if you are you do accelerate in your team, you're the best player, blah, 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 go and play the age group above, right? Go and push yourself so you can do this
but excel at your age group first.
Correct.
That's the part that's missed a lot right now, soccer and baseball, where we have the little league versus travel ball stuff. And hey, travel ball is so much better. It's better competition, better pitching, better hitting. It's just better. And then I watch some of the kids come and play little league, which is a level below, quote unquote, and they're fine. They're not dominant. So like, I don't, it doesn't make sense. And then we're burning everybody out. We're talking with a friend this morning. They know a kid that's on 3 baseball teams right now in season. And of those 3 baseball teams, they play a tournament every single weekend. So you're playing a Little League game Monday through Friday. You're supposed to be playing another Little League game on Saturday or Sunday. You're playing 4 games of travel ball every single weekend. And there's just there's diminishing returns, and that's just like, I know we're bouncing around on all these, but it's just
so there's diminishing returns
because
I have it with the dance kids, right? And I talk to Britton about this all the time. When it's a weekend off, there's no dance. Stop. Do nothing. Watch TV. Go ride a bike. Whatever you want. No conversations about it. Now, you see the reverse psychology. When you take it away, like anything, you take it away for the weekend, what's the first thing they go and do when they wake up?
Yeah, they're dancing around the living room.
Yeah. Can we go to the studio and get a tumbling mat out and practice? Yeah, dude, because you're so bought in and you love it. When it's not dominated in your life, you then want it because your choice and your option to then go and do more. That's what we're totally missing.
Or you providing them a forced timeout where if they still could be super passionate about it, but it's like, oh, I have a weekend off. Let's go to Great America. Let's go down the street to the farmers market. Let's go just hang out, and then you can read their cues on where they're at. But if you're saying, no, this is dance day, this is baseball day, and it's parent-led, that's a problem. But what we want to avoid is putting the pressure on the kid to say, hey, you need to be a part of 4 travel ball teams. You need to be on every single solo that you can get. You need to be there every single time. If you're not there, work harder, coming from us as parents.
Well, and I also try and encourage, just on the dance thing again, for all the kids, push back. If you don't want to do 2 solos, have a voice. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not being disrespectful. You're being transparent and honest. It's totally fine. But say all these podcasts that I've been sent this week all kind of go down to the same point of, and again, these are soccer ones, youth soccer in this country, and it's broken's the wrong word. I shouldn't use that at all. It's different because in everywhere else in the world, and we're getting there in this country, but I'm going to use England as an example, then like somewhere like Brazil. England, you have academies, right? As you know. So you have Manchester United, first team, second team, U18, U16, U14, all the way down. You get to U12, and then it's like a pool of players, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's a pool, right? They've gone around a local community, Los Gatos, Saratoga, Cupertino, Willow Glen, whatever, right? And they've said, you 17 kids, we want you to come out once a week and train with us, and we're just going to see how you do, right? By the time you get to 12, we may offer you then a chance at going onto the platform. Other countries, Brazil, for example, they don't have a full academy format, to my knowledge, of like Santos having a first team, second team, U18, U19, whatever, right? Um, so it's different. Again, these kids play club level and then they get picked to go to Europe because the full structure is built in Germany, in England, in France, and all of the above. And even in France, it's not super big because you've only got two leagues in France now. They've started to drop that down. So in this country, we're still relying on club coaches developing these kids up until that 14 bracket of MLS Next and NWSL, and I mean NWSL will catch up from the girls' side, but we're relying on these clubs to fill that gap that in Europe we've already got with pro clubs. The pro clubs is totally different, right? Man U pay their coaches, right? So it's not a parent. It's the club provides those coaches. The kids is free because their long-term goal is to get that 8-year-old, if they're good enough, to go all the way to the top. And somewhere in between, they may not make it and they fall out,
Yeah.
right? That's a different topic.
And I
But
think the top down, right, that makes sense to me. If you are a business in these, I mean, $1 billion business in the best of the best, their job is to find that top talent. But you have to have every single layer working really, really well so that the diamond in the rough who matures late at 17 is still playing soccer at 13 to have that opportunity. Now it breaks down, and there were friends describing what the MLS Next program is, right? Every club, I think there are 30 clubs now in MLS, has a club, but you're still talking about fractions of a percent of the total soccer pool. Baseball doesn't have an equivalent. I think you're more likely to have somebody playing in the backyard or wiffle ball now of getting that going, and more parents that are knowledgeable about the sport to rise. But you cannot have that goal going up. If the goal of every youth soccer program, community soccer program, was you going pro, the failure rate is astronomical, and you're developing the wrong. You're then in an over competitive. You're keeping score every single day. You're evaluating kids for the wrong things.
99.99% fail. Yeah.
And you're pushing kids out. But there's that handoff point to what you just said. Mom and dad on the sideline that have no idea what the game of soccer or baseball, about insert sport here, is about. There may not be a fundamental being taught. So there's either a methodology that needs to be universal, and there are many programs that are trying to do that. I think that some benefits of YouTube and Instagram are those videos that you can kind of show. When it comes down to, hey, you want to be an elite player, you need to go to this comp track at 6 so that you can get coached. And you need to do private trainings, which is starting to really just bother the hell out of me, of seeing all these families paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year and then being asked to do supplemental. Like, where's that ROI? That's the struggle. And let's just, we pulled up some stats before this, and as I'm reading them in front of me, just to kind of level set with everybody. Project Play is the source of the majority of this information. Average primary sport spend per kid, over $1,000. For high income families earning more than $150K, that's $2,000. So you have double the spend for high income versus not high income families. That's a big discrepancy. When you get into competitive travel, and this is specific, there's hockey and softball in this study, $10,000 to $13,000 a season to play youth sports. On the high end, $25,000. Some families spending $25,000 a year. And then the next stat is what makes me laugh. Of those surveyed, 57% say cost to play sports is unreasonable. So we have parents willing to do that.
Did you just
Percentage of parents willing to go into debt for youth sports? 20%. 20% have raised their hand saying, I will go into debt for my kid to play these sports. Now, again, on one hand, let's separate this out. Wanting the best for your kid, totally in. I'm one of those parents. I want the best for my kids, and I'm trying to push them, trying to drive them. Willing to go into debt to do that? This is a broken system. An absolutely broken system.
So going back to your original, you just read the pitch deck for PE, dude. Right? if I can invest in a facility knowing that the average parent, I'm just going to take an example of where we live, is probably going to pay $4,000 per year per kid, it's worth me looking at buying a location because these parents, and it's a constant flow, right? There's new kids
That's
born
the part.
every
You and I
day.
talk about this of especially in the Bay Area and some local clubs of there is no incentive to change when you have a flywheel that is built in, because even given those numbers, a percentage of kids that are quitting, there's another crop coming up, and it's built-in revenue of, hey, you know what? It might not be the most efficient, but if I can cash that check every month, and what else is anybody going to do? If
Well, and
if the
there's
local club is not running optimally, like you're then creating this travel incentive of kids going, driving 30, 45 minutes outside of their city to go play
well,
soccer.
look at the whole flywheel, right? Look at the whole flywheel. Kids play, kids pay, social pressure, playing a certain league, right? Goal orientated, which is the original core. Try and if you want to be pro, go the whole way, right? There's always a carrot here. Start then building that flywheel of pay to play, private training, certain organized clubs, certain cups, Surf Cup, for example, which I'm just using that as an example. It's a great tournament, but flights. So now you have travel organizations, packages, hotels. This flywheel, it's not just a single cog you're talking about. You're talking about an industry right now wrapped around a service platform for kids' sports, right? Which is where you get the 40 billion from,
And if you
right?
do the ROI for the private equity or any one of these companies that are centered in youth sports, that are built off of your data, selling you more stuff, right? The Dick's Sporting Goods, Blue Sombrero, Sports Connect conversation is the example we point to of they might not be making any money on the platform itself, but every season when you're going to buy a new glove, a new set of boots, a new kit, it's nonstop,
It's
right?
big
It's
business,
it's
dude.
built in.
It's
And
massive.
again, I'm not anti-capitalist. Make your money where you're going to make your money. What I'm against is we are trying to raise these kids to get off the screens, to be better humans. Everybody should have access to it. No kid should be quitting a sport. No kid should be specializing in a sport under the age of 13.
Well, and
Go
we've heard
try
that
everything.
so many times. Yeah, we've heard that so many times by all the pros. I just listened to a podcast with my good friend Rob. He played hockey because he's from that side of the country. Then came to California, started skating. Then he started the whole revoke with. He was one of the first snowboarders, right? So surfing, snowboarding, and skating all kind of in one package. Then riding bikes, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, it all started from hockey, balance, coordination, speed, agility. List goes on, right? And you just keep moving." And we've heard that thousands of times. All these top level sports athletes are saying we do multiple sports. We played, baseball, lacrosse, hockey, whatever it is. There was no specific year round, and again, some kids love one sport, no problem. Do it all the time. Like I totally get it. But you shouldn't be um you shouldn't be handicapped because you want to do other things from
You
playing
shouldn't
the
be punished for it.
sport, yeah, the sport you're most passionate about, right? I get really, really pissed off, very pissed off actually, when coaches don't let kids play because they missed training, but the missed training was for dance. I'm just gonna use dance because my kids are in dance. I'm like, dude, the amount of agility, balance, coordination. I posted a somebody on Instagram. I don't know if you saw it. I posted it yesterday. He broke down a ballet dancer's technique, not technique, but his physical presence. And I'm like, my God, dude, there's no
It's
other athlete in the world that I
fundamental
can
strength.
see. Yeah,
Go the
don't
extra.
punish the kid when they're doing other things that they
Yeah,
love. And honestly, ballet probably makes them better for the sport. They're not
but it
sitting on
doesn't
their
make that
ass.
coach more money. And that's just, I mean, tying it all together. If you did a map of the motivations on the coaches, the organizations, the parents, the kids, the overall apparatus. There's so many conflicting things that's why we're in this mess. But we can push back and start requiring a measurement. Like if this were a business, if we were treating our family as a business, there would be an ROI calculation. But how do you do that? And I think what we're building, I mean, selfish plug here, what we're building with Game Plan is exactly around that. If you center around the athlete as the motivating factor, and you give them the tools to understand the amount of hours they're practicing, the amount that your parents are driving, the skill set. Am I getting faster in my 40 time, which is benefiting me in baseball and flag football and soccer? And I'm spending this agility, packaging that all up and providing those opportunities and visibility is where we're at. And the same way on the club side, right? We're trying to balance the family, but when there's organizations that are using platforms that are all about the registration cost and maximizing the dollar and not maximizing the tools to be better coaches, to be better organizations, to produce better athletes, and measuring that, we're all behind. So we're trying to push forward in just a different way, have the right
And I mean,
motivation for the kids.
yeah, I mean, that's where Game Plan came from, right? It's like the consumer side of it, we're helping with coordination, scheduling, just making sure everyone's on the same path. The athlete specific side of it, being able to see how I'm getting better, what I'm doing, all those kind of things is so key. And the difference, I believe, is, the other companies we're talking about, you're just data scraping, right? You're pulling the data, the training, the facilities, whatever, into that. But again, to your point, it's not around the actual athlete. It's just a glorified Excel sheet, really, to make sure that people stay coordinated. Which there is a market there, and I get it. But again, it's a business app. It's not around the kid, the sport, what's best for that athlete, and absolutely does not follow them through their career, right? It just doesn't. So when you get into those interviews in a D1 or wherever, right? What do you do as a kid? Oh, I did baseball, soccer, blah 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 blah. Oh, you got an athlete's profile built. Yeah, I've been tracking since I've been 8 years old. Not that it's all about X's and O's and tracking, all that stuff. But when you get to that next level, when it really does, right, with, working with, Heath at Los Gatos, yeah, they track 40s when you're in high school and you're playing football, because it's just one of the stats you need, right? Baseball, they track, if you're a pitcher, how many throws you've made. Like, there is some stats that are constantly needed, depending on the sport, of where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, you specialize at different ages, so you understand what is and isn't important. But there's also a bonding. As a coach or player, we have kids on our baseball team that do exactly that, and it takes conversation and getting to know the kids. There's some tennis players that are playing baseball for the first year, and as a coach, I'm able to. All right, you're a tennis player. That's great. You've got great hand-eye. Let's picture this, right? It's a little different. Get your feet in this right spot. You can use it as an educational tool, knowing what else they're participating in, and exactly go participate.
Well, the other thing is,
as much as possible.
Right? Communication with the associate coach, right? I know Chad, so I'm going to say, hey, this kid's come out. Give me some feedback on the back end, right? And I'll throw this out there before we drop off. Hey, this kid seems great. Are the parents fucking crazy? So
well, the default answer to that is absolutely yes. But I think there's, we get talked to all the time of, yeah, it's great. You say all these things on this podcast. Like, what do you do for your kids, and how are you putting your money where your mouth is? And just to reiterate, we started Game Plan to do exactly that, to help families, to help athletes, and now to help organizations. So both sides of that network. We are both actively coaching and doing our best to convey that same messaging day in and day out. And we're also part of a nonprofit program locally, where we're just getting out there, volunteering our time because we love it. And more and more kids coming out at a low barrier of entry. Yes, there is financial cost to cover insurance, to cover field rentals, which we didn't even talk to that point today, Craig. But everybody listening, you can do the same thing, whether it's just in your own family talking about what matters and motivations and doing things for the right reasons, trying multiple sports, getting out there and volunteering to coach, right?
Yeah.
You can't ruin a kid at 6, 7, 8 years old. The only thing you do is make them hate the game. As long as you're out there having fun, you're doing things. And then for everybody locally, right, come on out. We're out there Saturdays and Sundays, varying different sports. We'll send a website out there so you can go get signed up. And to any listeners out there, we'd love the support on the game plan side.
Yeah, I was
Download the
going to
consumer
say,
app, get involved on the organization side. We'd love to have you on the platform.
yeah, I was going to say just our last little pitch was anybody listening, and we'll post this on LinkedIn and stuff, but if you're an org and need help, if you're, a coach that's interested, like reach out. Like obviously we're here to help guide and say we've had multiple meetings this week with with different soccer organizations on, their struggles, right? That you and I can help with. So reach out, let us know. Want to help.
Absolutely. Great place to end. Craig, as always, love it. I love that sweatshirt. Congratulations again on the success that you saw this year.
Let's go Cats.
Next week, we can update everybody on getting back into the swing of things with your golf game. Talk about trying new sports that you're terrible at.
That's right. Sub 100, we're fine.
I appreciate everybody listening. As always, you can find us wherever podcasts are available. Follow us on social media, The Struggle Bubble Pod. Reach out with any questions, or if you're interested in coming on as a guest, we're scheduled out for a little bit, but would love to have some more on the platform. Until then, we'll see everybody next week.
Adios.